Well, welcome back to your knowledge creation cohort. We are here to talk about what you're going to do this month.
You know, Corinne, before we talk about this month, though, I was thinking about last month and having these knowledge creation teams going in and doing that live calibration together. And it made me think about my first year as an AP. I had a wonderful principal, Bobby Nash, and one of the things we did at the beginning of the year is we kind of divided up who was going to do what observation, that type of thing. And early on in the year, a particular day, I went in and did one of the observations that I had. Came back to the office, and then Bobby walked in a little later, and she said, I just came back from doing so-and-so's observation. I was like, oh, I did an observation for that person today also. And she had forgotten that it was my observation to do. And so I said, do you want to write it up? And she said, no, Eric, you write it up, and then let's talk about it. Because I want to see if you saw what I saw.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly what they did.
Right. And so I wrote it up, and she looked at it. She said, you're right on target. Now, as a new administrator, that was very helpful for me to see the same things. And then she and I talked through it, and then we had that post-observation conference after I wrote it up. And that's what we're going to actually be doing this month.
Yeah, talking about feedback.
Right.
I was lucky enough, Ann Reaver did the same with me. We did a couple
Cohorts.
together. In addition, because we were in together, we actually sat and wrote the write-ups together. And so I was able to really get some insight as to how to write up an observation. And so this month, that's one of the things we're going to be working on.
I'm glad you said that, because what we did last month is not a phenomenon for Frederick County. It's something that we've done that's effective. But I guess the focus last month was across the board doing that and continuing to establish that as part of the culture of what we do in FCPS.
Yeah, working on our consistency. And, you know, it was interesting. We just started to look at the feedback, and it was really positive, and we're glad that people have enjoyed going out and working with each other to establish that consistency across our system. But we know we're still working on consistency. And as we work on consistency, we have to take that to the next step. And that next step is thinking through the feedback that we give to all of our teachers.
But you know, Corinne, I was thinking as we think about feedback, there has to be something in place first that allows individuals to be able to receive that feedback. And a large part of that is the culture that has been established within that team, within that building, to allow for the receiving of that feedback, especially when the feedback requires a courageous conversation. And so part of what we're going to do this month is we're going to talk about coaching or mentoring. And as administrators, we're coaches and we're also mentors. What does that mean and what does that look like? Well, part of being an effective coach, mentor, is the establishing of a meaningful relationship with those that we serve. And so as leaders in the organization, we are there to serve our staff, our students, and our community. And so the establishment of that relationship is key, especially when it comes to being able to have a trusted conversation, because we're trying to move that staff member forward to becoming even more effective at the work that they do with our students, and in turn the work that they're doing to close achievement gaps.
Yeah, and I think cultural proficiency, as we continue to dive deeper, really helps us even in our observation process. Thinking through ourselves as we work with each individual teacher, because we know that the observation process is about the individual teacher.
Right.
And so feedback really is personal. And so as we take a closer look at our observations and the write-ups, we really want to think through, are our practices effective? Are we giving actionable feedback for the teachers that we're working with? We actually are going to work with our knowledge creation partners. We're going to take a look at some observation write-ups that we've done, and we're going to analyze them together, making sure that we are giving good feedback for our teachers to help them move forward.
And in that, we have to consider and ask ourselves, after writing up that feedback, is it going to be welcomed by that staff member? What have we done to establish a relationship where that feedback is going to be welcomed, trusted, and taken for improvement? And that's a large part of what we have to always consider as administrators. That's the tough part. You mentioned cultural proficiency, and we think about the diversity wheel, and there are a lot of things that make it difficult for me at times to have tough conversations because of factors that I bring into every situation. And oftentimes we may find when we're having that conversation with the staff member based off of some things that we're seeing in their instruction, and the person may be a great teacher, they are a great teacher, but sometimes it's hard to be able to have those conversations, and so I may mark that person proficient or distinguished because of all the other good things. And sometimes that gets in the way of being able to have the conversation on those areas that need to be addressed to move that person forward, to grow. Am I coaching and mentoring in a meaningful way?
Yeah, and I think we've worked really, really hard at being consistent in determining relevant evidence. And we wouldn't want to not continue with that consistency, because that would then kind of dilute and invalidate the message that we're trying to give across the system. And so we want to continue with that consistency as we shift from what we see as evidence to what we're using that evidence for as we write it up. So it really is taking that evidence and then using that in the write-up. And so we want to make sure that that's just the shift, and it makes it seamless.
In your career, one of the things we're going to use this month to kind of help us with that, something that I know we didn't have when we became administrators, is we're going to share a tool here. I'll just pull it up. It's a mentoring cultural proficiency continuum tool.
Nice.
Questions. So again, this rubric is not a tool to go out and assess myself as a leader, but it's to give me some things to reflect on related to the mentoring piece and the cultural proficiency piece.
And we know the write-up really serves as kind of that guide to our conversations.
Right.
And so we really want to make sure that that guide is effective.
Because
And
the communication piece, though, is not only the face-to-face conference,
Right.
but that written piece, written communication is just as key.
Absolutely. So we're gonna work on that this
Yeah.
month. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So, looking forward to it. What do you think?
I think it'll be great.
Awesome.